Yeah. Some people may have heard of the band System of a Down. They've had several Billboard hits, Grammy nominations, won a Grammy in 2006, MTV Awards, over 40 million records sold. Mr. John Dolmayan, the drummer of System of a Down. Welcome to the show. Yeah, John, how you doing? What's happening? How are things going?
I've been working pretty hard on my comic book company called Torpedo Comics. We have two locations, one in Las Vegas, one in Orange County, and we've just been trying to develop it into something greater than just a comic book store. And we do have some plans that are starting to take form in that process. So there will be some exciting things coming from Torpedo within the next couple months. It's just a matter of like everything else I've done in my life, I just try to look at it and elevate it to the highest level I can. Of course, you have to surround yourself with really good people, really talented people. That's part of the process, and work as a team to create something that other people just don't think of. I like to think that throughout my career in music and comic books and everything else that I've done, I've tried to expand on the universe that I'm in to the best of my ability. And that's what we're trying to do here with Torpedo, with my comic book Essentia that I wrote, with System for the last 25 years, just trying to, not really trying, but being different, thinking outside of the box, thinking of innovative ways to do, the same. What is it? How many notes are there? 12?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not a guitar player, but you take them, you rearrange them, you make something interesting out of it that hasn't been done before. Although recently I've seen some bands that are highly influenced by System, and I think that's amazing that people out there have taken what we've done and made it their own as well, and been inspired by it, because that's how I got to where I was. I was inspired by tons of bands. That's where my sound comes from. Plus, of course, there's that internal spirit that embodies your art, but there are those outside influences that help shape you.
Yeah, well said. I
Absolutely.
mean, it is interesting to get to that point now where you're seeing bands kind of emulate what you guys did, or take kind of keys from how System would play and then incorporate that into their own version, and then eventually that'll happen to them later on down the line. And yeah, I'm going to get into the Torpedo and your comic book, but when you would come to the comic conventions, you were always an inspiration to me, to seeing how the Torpedo booth would expand and be this larger than most most booths, but just the experience of going into the Torpedo booth, the way that you would present it was just unlike anything else. And I attribute that to your feeling of wanting things to be larger than life, and just really, I just say, looking at you in the years that I have, you're a liver of life. You love life. You've been a huge inspiration to me in how I do things, and just in the levels that I can. So yeah, it's just great to see.
You have to think of it. Well, let me explain kind of the philosophy to you. So I'm satisfied by nothing. There's no way to fill the emptiness. My wife likes to point that out to me. So there's never a point where I say, okay, well, that's finished or that's great. I'm always trying to improve it. So when I saw what my predecessors and competitors and friends in the comic book industry were doing, I saw that they were very complacent. They were basically, some of them would even change their long boxes year after year, and you got $1 million worth of inventory, and the presentation is shit. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay, well, I'm not sure that that's how I want to approach this, and because of that, like, mental illness that I have of never being satisfied by something, I strove to make my booth a little bit different, and also to take what other people were doing, because a lot of people had great ideas, but it would be like one aspect of what they were doing was a great idea, and then they would kind of fail in many other ways. There's a dealer that sells chocolate bars at his booth, which I never really understood, and he had his booth looked very ramshackle and old boxes, and his display was shit. But he had one great idea, and that great idea was he would cut up like the covers of comics and attach the logo of the comic book to like a divider, and that's how you would be able tell where the books were, you know. So for Fantastic Four, he would have the Fantastic Four logo cut off a book. And I looked at that. I said, that's brilliant. That is brilliant. Why didn't I think of that? Well, I didn't think of it, but I did improve it, because I said, instead of cutting up a comic book, which to me is sacrilege.
Super sacrilege.
I just made color copy of the comic book and attached it to the top of a board. And then later on, we actually got images off the internet and had the entire board printed.
Yeah.
You know, so it was a matter of improving on that great idea that the chocolate bar selling comic dealer had. But he just, you know, he had that great idea, but the approach could have been done better, basically, is what I'm saying. You know, like Apple didn't invent the phone, right? But they perfected the iPhone, you know, and many other products. So that's basically the mindset, is just to go around constantly watching, constantly trying to improve, and then hoping to inspire other people to also elevate their game. Your display, your booth setup, all of these things should reflect who you are as an individual, but also reflect what you're selling people. Are you selling people that you're, you know, a mediocre kind of player in the industry, or are you selling people that you're a top player in the industry? So, you know, I'm hoping that in some way changed a little bit of the perception of what comic book people and industry and dealers are in general. And we're going to continue to do that, because we're not finished. I have a completely different display envisioned for the next time we're allowed to have Comic-Con. It's going to be, again, it's something no one's ever done, you know, so, but we also spend the money, you know, like not everybody can afford that, and I get it, but you can still take pride in what you do, right? For example, there might be one person that has a mansion that has, you know, well manicured lawns and all that, and it looks beautiful. They've got a staff of 20 people that maintain that. But then there's also the homeowner that saved up all his life or her life and bought a home, that goes out and plants the garden and trims the shrubs and all that, and takes that same that has that same sense of pride in their property as the mansion owner does, but might even appreciate it a little bit more, because they're the ones doing the work, and they actually know every piece of that house and every piece of that garden. But they have something beautiful, and the neighbor could, you know, have an unkept garden and it looks like shit, you know. So I try to be more of the person who takes pride in what they do and really tries to elevate the people around them whenever possible. But I'm also inspired by other people's great ideas, you know. So and I think that is a lesson for life in general. You can go around and be inspired and take that inspiration, and if you have work ethic, you know, it's not easy to do it. If you have the work ethic, you can improve your life and improve the industry you're in.
Yeah. I just wanted to quickly interject real fast. We're talking about Torpedo and stuff and how you're changing it. For those who don't know where that is, it is in Las Vegas, and as he mentioned, it is probably, and I truly mean this, I've been to a lot of comic book stores. It's probably one of the most unique and probably the best comic book store you could go to in the United States, or if not the world. Midtown Comics, I know, is very big, but honestly, it's boring in there. Incredibly boring, in my opinion. It just feels like a retail store. But when you go into Torpedo, it feels like an experience. It feels like, yes, it's a retail store, but you also have, like, it's almost like a museum in some respects. You know, it's a geek, it's a pop culture, like, you know, church, if you will. It's if you're a comic book fan, this could be like your church. Like, I can't recommend it enough. I definitely think Torpedo is on its way to changing the way we look at comic book stores. So I just wanted to say that.
I remember when I was a kid and I went to a comic book store for the first time, it really was like walking in a fantasy land.
Yep.
And it was a basic comic book store. You know, they had like stacks of comics, they had bins, but their entire wall was full of all these comic books that were just basically pinned to like a cardboard wall.
Yeah.
You know, or like a cork wall. But for me, it was magical. I guess that was a philosophy here, is to create something magical for people of all ages, so that the 12-year-old kid walking in there would feel the same sense of awe as a 40-year-old kid in all of us. And they would be able to share that in different ways, of course, depending on their perspective, so that they could see a comic book that they never thought they would see in person, or a piece of original art that they never thought they would see, but also the meticulous detail of the store, like the themes. I'm a fan of pop culture in general, but especially Star Wars and Lord of the Rings. Those are two of my favorites. I think they're iconic, life-changing brands that have come out and storylines that were created. And there are elements of those brands in my store. So you might be a Doctor Who fan and see our back door. Rather than have a door that goes to our bathrooms be a regular door, we made it look like Doctor Who's, whatever that thing's called.
The TARDIS, the phone booth thing.
Yeah, it's TARDIS.
Exactly. I call it a phone booth, but whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, technically not wrong, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess that's probably a similar way in how you would approach drumming too, right? Like when you were focusing on drumming, like how do you become the best drummer or like elevate yourself as a drummer? And that kind of also is.
For me, it's never been about being the best at anything. It's not important for me to have the best of anything. It's important for me to be exceptional at whatever I do. So when it came to my drumming, I practiced 4 hours a day, 5 hours a day for many years. And I tried to not just be technically great, but more like mentally. For me, it was about dissecting the songs and figuring out things that made the songs sound different. And it was really, I was tailor-made to be in System because the writing for System is so out there and different that it really required drumming that was also able to match that, and have like a diverse flavor and taste range, jazz, fusion, rock, reggae. But there's really no elements that we don't use in System. But fortunately, I have like a wealth of musical tastes that I can draw from, and that's kind of the same vibe that happens within the rest of the three guys. It permeates our mindsets of just the diversity of styles, and we were able to bring these together in an amalgam that created the music that we created. But it was never about being the best drummer in the world, technically. I listen to a lot of very good technical drummers, and I appreciate them as well, with Neil Peart being my favorite. But the thing that I respected the most was a drummer that could go into what may be like a mundane song and elevate that song. Because at the end of the day, a lot of like the fusion, crazy, they're doing solos, all that. Then you ask them to create a beat for a song, and they don't know how to do it. They come up with really basic beats. So yeah, that's another reason why I never really pursued schooling of any kind for my drumming. I'm sure I could have benefited in some ways from it, but I just felt like it was better for me to figure it out on my own. And who's a better teacher than Neil Peart, John Bonham, and Keith Moon? I put their albums on, and that was my schooling. As far as writing, I never took a writing class. I barely graduated high school, but I read a lot. So my teachers were James Clavell, obviously J.R.R. Tolkien was a massive, massive influence on me. Frank Herbert, like mostly fantasy stuff, some sci-fi, but mostly fantasy. And that's where I learned everything, not to mention like comic books. I read comic books for 40 years almost.
Yeah. And you and System, just real quick, I want to mention that you guys released 2 songs at the end of last year. Were those songs like stuff that you guys had already kind of recorded and had just needed to put out, or was that something that you guys actually got together with, or how'd that come about?
Well, just for your listeners, give you a little bit of brief history here. Recently, Azerbaijan, allied with Turkey, we're talking about 100 million people combined, attacked Artsakh, which is a region populated by Armenians, which was liberated by Armenians about 30 years ago. And Armenia with Artsakh combined have about 3 million people. Kind of not a poor country, but not well off. We don't have oil. We don't have diamond mines. We have basically a tourist industry and some textiles and stuff like that, but not a wealthy nation by any means. And also technology-wise, military-wise, very, very behind the times. We got attacked basically by Turkey, really, is the overlying power here that is attacking through Azerbaijan, which is a puppet country of Turkey. And they attacked, and in defense of ourselves, we lost a lot of good people, and basically lost this skirmish. Had to retreat. And as an Armenian, and as a surviving ancestor of survivors of the Armenian genocide, which took place in 1915, where 1.5 million Armenians were killed by the Ottoman Empire, which is now Turkey, in what is basically a religious attack. We're Christian, they're Muslim. They didn't want any. They were already losing the Ottoman Empire. They lost Greece. They lost other parts of the Ottoman Empire. They were feeling like they were going to lose what was Greater Armenia at the time, which was about a quarter of Turkey today. So they said, look, it's easier just to get rid of these people, kill them. And they took out, 3/4 of our population at that time. So we were down to about 500,000 Armenians worldwide. And we bounced back, but it's still a nation that's in a really tough area in the Caucasus there, between Russia, Georgia, Azerbaijan, and Turkey. It's not a fun place to be. And really, our only ally has been the diaspora, which means the people that live outside of Armenia that have done the best they can to support the home country. So because of this, we felt it necessary, and were inspired to create these 2 songs that were new songs. Our guitar player had written them, but they had never been recorded or worked on by System. And System hasn't released any music for 15 years or so, something like that, because we have a lot of internal issues. But we were able to put those issues to the side for a greater cause, and we were able to get these 2 songs done. I don't know if we could have done a third, because quite frankly, it was not a fun experience. But we got them out, and hopefully we brought some attention to the cause. We certainly raised quite a bit of money. We raised over $1 million through these 2 songs, and it's heartbreaking for us to see images of young kids, 19-year-olds, going to war, trying to protect the homeland, trying to prevent another genocide. Because in 1915 we didn't have a military. It was very difficult for us to defend ourselves against armed military of Turkey. But now it's a little bit of a different story. We do have a military, and if we do go down, we're not going to go down without inflicting a lot of damage on the opposition. So they have to tread lightly. And we're still fighting the good fight over there. This thing is not over. There's a ceasefire. I don't know how long that's going to last, but we do want to bring attention to it, because at the end of the day, these are people defending themselves, very much like the Spartans, against insurmountable odds. But we're in the right. We've always been in the right, because we're not attacking them. They've always attacked us.
Yeah.
So that's why we were able to galvanize the band and put out these 2 songs. I don't know if you'll ever hear another System song again.
That was it. That was the return. Well, I mean, it's good that you guys could come together, and you have such a platform, you have such a fan base, because you really don't see a lot or hear a lot in the news or any kind of media really about what's going on in Armenia and the
you don't.
humanitarian.
You had COVID, you had the presidential election. People's focus was somewhere else, and that's part of the reason why they attacked. They used the presidential election and COVID, assuming that, and they were right, assuming that people would be so focused on what they were doing to not even worry about it. But this isn't the first time this happened. 1 million people died in Rwanda before anybody did shit. Serbia. By the time people wake up to the fact that something's happening and that there are atrocities being committed, it's usually almost too late. We don't act quickly, because look, at the end of the day, people are focused on feeding their families, taking care of themselves. You're talking about Armenia. They don't even know where Armenia is. They certainly don't know where Artsakh is or heard of it. It's a 24-hour flight to get there. It's just not in their lexicon, which is understandable. But if we're here in the United States, first of all, greatest country in the world, in my opinion. And I'm not xenophobic because I'm not from here. So, I've been around the world. I've seen everything. And I'm telling you, this is the best place to live.
Right.
And, but because of that, we also have a little bit of a moral responsibility. So we have to decide whether or not we're only doing things because of financial gain or because of a long-term advantage for the United States, or are we the arbiters of justice throughout the world? And how do we achieve that without putting our own people at risk, but yet walk the walk, because we talk the talk, but are we going to walk the walk always? And that's not always the case. I think we could do things better to a certain extent.
Sure. Yeah, well, again, it's great that you guys were able to come together and make some music that helps bring awareness to it, and also you helped to raise some money to help out. One of the other things that you released last year, music-wise, was this album, These Gray Men.
I don't know what you're looking at.
He's so nervous.
Yeah.
That's why.
I have notes here, and so I'm trying to. I know you just want to look into my eyes, but
you've always been handsome. There's no denying it.
Thank you.
I agree. I completely agree with that. He's a super handsome guy.
Yes. Well, thank you. Anyways, yeah, These Gray Men. So that was another. I know you've been working on that for a bit, and you released it, and that's kind of like not a cover album, but more like an album where you took songs and kind of recreated them with other musicians. But you that was your project from the start, right? Like you picked certain songs that you liked that you wanted to redo. You worked on stuff with guys from System, from Rage, Against the Machine, Avenged Sevenfold, and I guess that was kind of like if you're not going to be able to do music with System, you got to create somehow, right? So is that kind of where that came from?
It was really just because I enjoyed playing covers when I was younger, and we always kind of reimagined the covers. We never did covers exactly like the originals, and really because I didn't have the satisfaction of working with System and creating with System and making music with them, I did feel that itch to do something musically, and I did it, and I had a good time doing it, and I was very proud of it. In fact, I'm contemplating doing a second album with some really weird songs, a lot of pop songs. I don't think people would expect that, but stuff like that, just so people understand, I don't make any money off that. It's purely just for the joy. In fact, I think the last one cost me $60,000 out of my pocket to do and to put out. But you shouldn't be motivated by money for everything that you do, and some things you do knowing that you're going to lose money, and it's just a part of it. I've been fortunate to make a good living with System, and at the end of the day, I would prefer to do music only and exclusively with System, but that's not up to me, so that because that has been taken away from me, you do kind of look at other outlets for that creative energy that you have, which is how I got back into writing after taking a hiatus from writing from the age of 10 to, maybe 5 years ago when I started working on Essentia. But I used to be a creative writer when I was a kid too. So
yeah, I imagine I was getting to that as like another creative outlet for you. But real quick, what you mentioned something. Would you ever take a job like say in a band like Avenged Sevenfold? They're like, we need a new drummer. John, are you available? Would you ever consider something like that?
First of all, Avenged Sevenfold has a fantastic drummer.
Yeah, they do.
So,
but if something happened,
phenomenal.
like he fell and couldn't do it anymore.
Oh, you mean like for a short term? I absolutely, I would consider any band, but Avenged Sevenfold, especially because Matt's such a great guy, and I know a couple of the guys from the band. They're really good people. So yeah, I would absolutely do that if the opportunity arose and I felt like I could add something to it and I could handle the music. And I don't think I could handle Slayer, but I could probably handle Avenged Sevenfold. They have some double bass that I might have to work on, but generally speaking, if I can add to it, I would absolutely consider it. What would be even more fun is if some bands wanted me to play a song or two on an album. I would absolutely do that.
Awesome.
And I think that my style is so associated with System that might be part of the reason why I don't get that many offers, or maybe I don't know. Who cares? The offers don't come in; they don't come in.
Right.
But I've done a couple of things here and there for other bands. I worked on an album for Killing Joke. It never got released because Dave Grohl came into the whole album. Prick.
Yeah.
Dave actually is a very nice guy. He reached out the other day to say how much he liked the new song. So he's one of the nicest people I've ever met in this business, and most genuine. And the fucking guy gets every damn gig there is. Pisses me off.
He's always smiling. And
That's what. Yeah, that's. I was
putting out
gonna
the
say.
good
I was literally gonna
vibes.
say the same thing.
Listen, bro, you're talking about a drummer who became the lead singer.
Yeah.
That's a ideal situation.
Yeah.
Right? Because drummers are. I'm gonna clue you in on something. Drummers are the smartest guys in the band, guys.
Oh, I agree.
Okay?
I agree. Yeah.
Very rarely will you have a drummer get kicked out of a band. Very rarely. Because we know that we're pretty easily replaced.
Yeah, that's right.
Keep your fucking mouth shut and do your thing.
Yeah.
Although I don't keep my mouth shut ever.
Yeah.
You know, on the subject of like having you in bands and stuff like that, you know who I've always thought that I would love to see you play with, because I think your playing style matches like their heaviness and bass, or at least when Chi Cheng was alive, Deftones. I've always would have loved to see you play with them.
Again, you're talking about my boy Abe.
Yeah, and
Cunningham,
he's
who
great.
is,
He's amazing. I love the Deftones, obviously, but it's like I think it would be nice to see you kind of sub in there. You know what I mean?
I wouldn't mind doing a
Yeah.
song. You know, Abe's come on our stage a couple of times over the years and played system songs here and there.
That's awesome.
Usually in a disastrous
Yeah,
way.
I saw that in Sacramento one time. It happened in a
Yeah.
disastrous way. But
I never tell the band he's doing it. You know, we just bring him up.
I like that. You just spring stuff on people. I love it.
And I'm like, hey, did you practice the song? He's like, yeah, I've been thinking about it. I'm like, no, you practice it? No. All right, fuck it. Go play it, bro. Let's see what happens. You know?
That'd be awesome, man.
I would do a song with the Deftones if they asked me to, or Korn.
Korn would be good too,
or,
yeah.
You know, or let me think who else. Muse, I would love to do a
that'd be
song with
awesome.
Muse. I love that band.
that would,
Wow. Who would you drum for that wouldn't be rock related though?
Weekend.
The-
I would like to do a song with
that answered my question. Yeah, awesome.
Aside from that Super Bowl fiasco, I think he's very talented.
Yeah.
Wait, why do you say that? I'm just curious.
Come on.
You know why he said that.
Okay, so I didn't think it was that great either, but everybody's talking about how amazing it is. So that's why I'm saying I'm curious why you say that. If you don't mind talking about that.
Because it sucks.
I mean, there it is. What else can you say?
He spent $7 million on that out of his own pocket. It was terrible.
Yeah, and where did it go? Where was that money at? I didn't understand that personally.
Oh, listen, when you get into union fees, bro, trust me, it adds up real quick.
Gotcha. Okay, so it was more of that kind of stuff. Gotcha.
Yeah, I've heard stories about union fees at Comic-Con. Jeez. Yeah. So anyways, your book, Essentia. So this was another kind of creative outlet for you. And I just want to talk about or ask you about like where did the name Essentia come from?
Hold on, Mike. Have you read it?
I did read it. Yeah. I was
Okay.
part of the Kickstarter, which made it happen. So
Nice.
Good call out.
Did you get it yet?
I
got the
didn't
book?
get my Kickstarter one, but I did buy one from a shop. Yeah.
What a good guy.
Yeah.
See,
Well, I've got.
they say you're a jerk, but that's not true.
You say what?
Nothing.
I heard that.
Well, I had to. There's variant covers, so I ordered the Jim Lee cover, but then I had to get the Tony Parker, the main cover.
That thing is so rare, bro. The Jimmy
Yeah.
one. There's
Wow.
almost nobody has those.
Yeah.
So I was watching Armageddon.
Yeah.
You know the movie Armageddon.
When did you watch that?
With Ben Affleck?
I just watched that
Willis.
the other day.
Can't avoid it. It's on every 2 days.
But it's so good.
And I was watching it years ago, probably 10 years ago. And I was like, man, what a cool concept, right? And then there was Deep Impact. And it's like you start to think about like how finite everything is, and human life, we have such a limited time on this planet. And even the planet has a finite lifespan,
Mm-hmm.
and everything, they're just kind of the sadness of that. Part of why I love the Silmarillion so much, as far as all of J.R.R. Tolkien's works, that's my favorite. And one of the reasons why I love it so much is because it gets into the mythology of why everything exists. And it really gives you an idea of the sadness of the elves. Because here's a race that are basically immortal, but they can die, and, there could be an elf that's been around for 10,000 years. Imagine like the wisdom and the artistry and the knowledge and the depth of somebody that has lived for 10,000 years, and to be extinguished by an orc, or by some calamity. And that sadness kind of translated over to Armageddon as I was watching it. And I was like, wow, like, imagine if tomorrow we all found out that like in a couple of weeks, we're all just going to die. Like, think of like a cancer patient who is diagnosed with terminal cancer, and they know they're going to die, and then they go through all those emotions of anger and everything. But at the end of the day, it's just acceptance, because you realize we're all going to die anyway. And at the end of it, what's important is how we live in the time that we're allotted, and the joy that we give to other people and that we get back during that time. And all of these things started to manifest in the story. Also, some things that make me very angry in life. I'm a very emotional person, although people wouldn't necessarily know that. And I'm deeply affected by things. And some stories I heard, without giving away too much of the first year of Essentia, kind of brought about that storyline for the first year. And so the gist of Essentia is, for those of you who don't know anything about it, if you're interested, is that we find out that there's an asteroid or meteor coming towards the Earth, and it's about 2 years away from impacting. And when it impacts the Earth, everything will be gone. This is like twice the size of what took out the dinosaurs. There's no chance of survival, all the way down to like bacteria. Everything will be destroyed. And it's about kind of like, well, the story you'll be reading in issue 1 isn't about this, but later on you'll find out about this and how people reacted to it. And, what is humanity really? Like, we're just a society based on rules that somebody came up with, but like, what binds us all, what holds it all together, is the belief in the idea of society. What would dismantle that? How quickly could it be dismantled? Well, have you ever seen people when there's a food shortage? Or more recently, when all semblance of law is taken away and you can do whatever you want, you can riot and, kill people. Just imagine if there were no rules. What would you do? What would society become? So it touches on that. But at the end of the day, I'm also an optimist, and I believe that people are inherently good, not evil, and that we will rise above things, even if we have stumbles in our lives, And I look at teachers such as like Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr. and the Dalai Lama, and very, very big, impactful people, and their philosophies were all the same. Change through peace. Turn the other cheek, whatever you want to call it. They made profound changes that were lasting changes, and they did it peaceably. And I think that ultimately that is the human desire, is to just live their lives, create a better situation for the coming generations, and be with your family whenever possible. So anyway, let's go back. Let's wind it back a little bit. Wind it back.
Yeah.
So that was the basic inspiration for Essentia, where it came from. The ideas stem from Armageddon, which is, a fun film, but also, a lot of Tolkien, a lot of Gandhi, faith in humanity, but also an understanding that humans are fallible and that there are bad people out there, that no matter what options you give them, they're always going to choose bad.
Yeah. So it's like the story is essentially about this asteroid coming and what that means, the impending doom, but it's really about the deeper meaning is a little there about how humans react when they're faced with their own immortality, right? Like, and what that does to people.
So it's not going to make sense until I explain this. The asteroid, about 2 weeks away from impacting the Earth, it blows up into billions of pieces. We don't know why. And what ends up landing on Earth is basically a basketball-sized sphere of almost a living metal. and it creates this like 20-mile crater on impact. And while we are over there trying to figure out what this thing is, and we send researchers, helicopter crashes, and the blast throws like a worker underground like 20 yards, and he's all lacerated. Because if you've ever seen like a crater floor, it's almost like glass, right? Like cracked glass. And he's just trying to steady himself, and he accidentally touches the orb for just a split second, and he instantly turns into a baby. But that baby is still that man and still kind of speak, although the speech isn't quite there because the muscles haven't quite developed in the speech yet, for an infant. And we figure out, for whatever reason, there's properties in this orb that make you younger. And the closer you are in proximity to this orb, the younger you get. And then it kind of like subsides. And then at the end of this crater is the influence is finished, right? Like, so it only goes to the crater. So what happens is that becomes the most expensive real estate in the world where everybody wants to be. All governments move to this place. All powerful people move to this place. And we're now 150 years in the future. And there's, 200-story buildings here. And it is the power base of the entire planet. All decisions are made there. But then also everybody wants to be there, but can't get in, right? So a city develops around it called Bethany. And basically these are like favela style cities. If you've ever seen favelas in Brazil, they're destitute, they're dangerous places, but children live there. You know what I mean? Like it's it's a weird thing because it is very poverty stricken, but yet can be a lot of beauty there as well. So these favelas basically develop all the way around called Bethany, where about 60 million people live. And, there is resentment because they die, but the people in the center don't, so there's a lot of story I can get into, but you'll be going down a wormhole with me if you do, because I have like 5 years, 6 years of stories already planned.
Awesome.
And I just have to say that if you have read it or are planning on reading it, stick with it. It's a slow burn. There's no superheroes, there's no big things happening. It's the long play.
Right.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's like Essentia, the city itself, and Bethany, it's like the mirror opposite of it. And almost even in the way it's drawn, I think, and I'll talk about your artist who's drawing it in a sec, but when I'm looking at the pages where they're in Essentia, it's very elegant and kind of like, it almost looks like two different artists drew Bethany and Essentia, but it's all the same artist, Tony Parker. Was that?
Yeah, he killed it. He did exactly what I wanted, which was, Art Deco, super high end, incredible technology. So imagine like within a mile of each other are two cities. One of them has every technological advancement known to man, and the other one is basically using technology that we find outdated today.
Yeah.
So think about where technology would be in 150 years, and imagine that city gets that technology, but the one we live in is using like rotary phones.
Right. Yeah, it's such a cool trend, like polar opposite of each other. And when you picked Tony Parker, what was like your reason for picking him? Like, what made you go with Tony as opposed to anyone else?
Well, I looked for an artist one of the reasons this didn't come out 3 years ago is because I couldn't find a fucking artist, man. Like, artists are flaky.
They sure are.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
They sure can be.
Artists are flaky. And really, most of the great ones have long-term contracts with either Marvel or DC.
Yeah.
So I remember talking to Adi Granoff, who's phenomenal. I was like, man, I want you for my book bad. He's like, man, I can't have exclusive with Marvel. It's possible. I was like, no way to break that contract. But I really wanted Adi for the interiors. And then he couldn't do it. And I was talking to Carlos Dianda for a long time. I don't know if you guys know who that is. Another phenomenal artist. and he just couldn't commit to a long-term thing. And I needed somebody that was like going to take this ride for years. And I was just walking around Seattle Comic-Con, really just desperate to find an artist. But I needed to find somebody that had the talent, that was not necessarily well known, but had experience in comics, but wasn't big enough to where it would be impossible. And also somebody that was still developing, right? I think Tony is better today than he was when we started. Every issue is better. You know, the guy's just like fucking making leaps and bounds. So there was Tony Parker sitting there by himself at his table doing a sketch for somebody. And I went and I looked at some of his stuff and I was like, And then I kind of like rifled through his trade paperback that he had. And I was like, well, I saw the potential, you know, like, and I was like, hey man, are you interested in doing my book, Essentia? At the time I thought I was going to release it through Image. That was before I decided just to do it on my own publishing company.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, let's talk about it. And he was just the nicest guy. And instantly liked the guy, developed a bond with him. And then over the course of the next couple of months, started getting into it, told him my idea. He loved the idea. And, you know, it's been a match made in heaven, because the guy, he's the only artist I know that constantly bothers me for the pages.
Yeah.
You know, he's like, John, I need more. You know, I need the next issue. And hey, I'm just checking in. Every week I hear from him. And as a writer, man, sometimes you go through like other shit. You know, I don't have time, right? Like this isn't my only thing I'm doing. So, and during the attack on Armenia, I was so depressed. I couldn't write. I couldn't do anything artistic. You know, I was so angry that it just took away anything in some ways good. Anything good I had in me was just kind of shut down, and I was just angry and felt powerless to do anything about it. So he was very patient during that time. We're on issue 8 now, you know, and issue 2 is coming out. I think might already be out in stores. So, you know, we do have a head start on it, thankfully. And as far as the covers are concerned, I have a lot of friends in the industry, so I'm trying to get all of them to do covers, but also finding people on Instagram that are not that well known. I'm dealing with this Indian kid. Actually, neither of us speaks the other person's language, but we got a translator, and he's a phenomenal artist, but nobody knows who he is. So, you know, it's also nice to be able to find these guys and girls. There was a girl named Sarah out of Australia that I found through Simon Bisley, and she did a cover. It's phenomenal. It's one of my favorite covers, but nobody knows who she is. But they'll find out, you know. So it's going to be like a mix between really well-known artists like Jim Lee, Frank Cho, you know, Mark Brooks, et cetera, and then people you never heard of, you know, but are phenomenal at what they do.
I think it's great. It's like you're using, you know, your ability to have all these amazing artist friends that you've made over the years, you know, like the ones you mentioned, but also like using your platform to help other artists who you think are great, who may need a big break, you know, and this could be that for them too. So, yeah.
It's really important for me to showcase people who have talent, who maybe just don't have the conduit.
Right.
You know, they're sending their stuff to the 3 publishers, but those guys get millions of requests a year.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
So I have the ability, like an indie label, I have the ability to really sit there and look for these hidden gems. And keeping in mind also that not all artists are tenacious, right? Like they may be very talented, but they don't have the ability or the self-confidence to go and say, hey, look at my stuff. It's awesome. You know? So you gotta find them in certain circumstances, which is, you know, another thing. I'm open to people sending me their work, or even saying, hey, look, I have this friend who's an artist. He's phenomenal. Check this out. Send it to me.
I might send you something.
I'm completely open to it. I'm on Instagram and I answer the messages.
I'm going to send you something.
No, not you, Mike.
You're uninvited.
I know, anyone but me. One of the roles in comics that often.
You want to do a cover, Mike?
That?
Go ahead, do a cover.
I'll do a cover. Yeah, I'll submit.
For free, though. For free.
Don't give Dave Wyatt, though, because he'll do it.
Right. That's right.
Mike did a nice cover for me as a gift, gave it to Dave Wyatt, and Dave Wyatt lost it.
Is that what happened to it?
That's exactly what happened.
Well, it's gone. It's in Bakersfield somewhere now.
Probably.
One one of the roles in a comic book I feel like often just gets not mentioned is the colorist. You know, it's one of the things that I do. And how'd you find your coverist and blonde? Blonde?
He's badass, right?
Yeah, like what's how do you pick a guy like blonde for a cover?
He was suggested to me. There was a 3 colorists that I gave like tests to, like you give them the art and they see what they come up with, and his just resonated with
Yeah.
me. He got the differences between Essentia and Bethany. He was able to get that difference the same way that Tony did, and made one of them look like a darker place, which it is.
Yeah. What's when you released the first issue, that kind of helped that's still the same thing that continues the next several issues. So we're for sure going to see 2, 3, 4 ongoing. That's all covered.
But Diamond's already ordered 2, 3. They're gonna. If nobody wants it from Diamond, don't worry, but Torpedo will release it.
Right.
And
Torpedo.
So we have our own distribution, so we don't depend on anybody. But Diamond's been very supportive of it. They gave us ads. Usually if you're a new publisher, you have to have 2 or 3 books. We only have 1. They put us in there anyway. Of course, I have relationships, so all over the place, so that helps a lot.
It must.
And I'm not gonna lie. Without that, probably wouldn't have seen this book unless it was at the small press tables at conventions.
Yeah,
but
next to me.
We're going to be big with this.
Yeah, you don't want to have a table next to me in small press.
No, your table's looking nice, by
Thank
the way.
you.
I see that you take some initiative.
I was influenced by your, when you come rolling in with these huge, looks like you're setting up a stage for a show, and it's.
Yeah, but Mike, keep in mind, bro, that anything you can do to differentiate yourself from everybody else, puts you on the map more, and makes you look more professional. Mm-hmm. People will take you seriously if you take yourself seriously.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Oh yeah, well, very well said.
What's so Torpedo? Let's talk about your shop more, and obviously you can find your book there. There's also your variant covers, which one of the things your store is known for is doing these really exclusive Torpedo variants, right?
Yes.
And so
yes.
I think it's really awesome. And like when you started Torpedo, was that kind of a vision for you? Is like, I want to create my own comic and put it through here. Also, like the variant covers is one thing I want to like be known for.
Just trying to do something different. We have we're the only store I know that before COVID was doing like 40 signings a year.
Wow.
So like every month we'd have 2 or 3 artists and writers out there. I mean, we just try to do something different, man. Like differentiate ourselves from everybody else. Like I told you before, elevate. I have a lot of far-fetched ideas, but unlike other people, mine come to fruition. I have a fucking idea for a new store, bro. What I have in my head, if I make it into a real store, it's a game changer. There's nothing like it in the world. So it's hard to really explain it. Like I think my wife thinks I'm nuts, but it's just the way I'm wired. If I fail big.
Yeah.
But there's always some good that comes out of those failures.
Yeah.
We lost a ton of money on these goddamn variants.
Oh yeah.
But we keep, we did 27 covers for Batman 1027. 27 covers.
You guys did 27.
Yeah.
Sorry, 29 covers.
Yeah, there's a lot of variants.
27.
Yeah, I remember seeing that, and I was like, "Whoa, that is a lot of exclusive variants." But that's pretty badass, if you ask me.
We lost our ass, but you know what? It'll end up making a profit. But again, man, some of those variants, there's only 500 copies out there of big artists. So eventually they will gain value. In fact, they already have value. But the bottom line is we take these great leaps and we fail big, but it helps to perpetuate Torpedo's name. It enlarges it. I think we have a reputation of quality out there.
Absolutely.
And you have to invest in that.
All right. Well, yeah, just saying, like, one of the other books that you can find at your Torpedo Comics is my Captain A-Hole's Guide to Customer Service, which is just re-released. So thank you for that, John. and I told you, man,
You can't have that. That's not going to be in Barnes and Nobles.
No.
The Barnes and Noble still
Yes.
exist?
No, but it is in Torpedo, and that's in the comic book world.
That's right.
Is equal to a Barnes and Noble in the book world.
That's better.
And yeah.
You might find that on our website.
Oh, well, there you go.
Whoa.
And do you and just I don't know, like, do you feel like how like your political stance and how you've been vocal? Do you think that's affected negatively your book sales and like or do you think people are like?
It's affected me negatively in Hollywood. Yeah. We had an agent that we were talking to about making this into, pitching this to some people, and
No.
I got to tell you, I'm really disappointed in a lot of people, a lot of liberals, because I have a lot of liberal friends. Most of my friends are liberal. I'm a conservative, as some people may or may not know. But at the end of the day, I change my opinion on things based on information. So if I get new information, I reevaluate, I look at things, and I make a decision based on that. So what's happening right now is with this cancel culture bullshit is really destructive. Yeah. And it always backfires on the people that are instituting it. And we have to be really careful, because in the 50s, we had something called McCarthyism, where people that were hyper liberal and a lot of people that were considered communist, basically they lost their entire lives. That whole generation of great artists and writers that were just ostracized. And we have to be careful, because if we allow that to happen in any way, it could always come back to the other side. Because I will tell you, this generation is very liberal, but the next one might be more conservative, and so on and so forth. It does tend to turn around. And then they look, especially now with social media and all this bullshit, people go back and they check things. They're like, oh, really? This is how you felt? And you're judged on that for the rest of your life.
Absolutely, yep.
So I'm a conservative. I want what's best for everyone, but I want everybody to have the freedom to do these things. I don't like big government. I don't like the agenda of a lot of the Democratic platforms these days. I think AOC is a moron. I just have to put that out there.
Okay.
I like to say that in every conversation.
All right.
Look, at the end of the day, I just want everybody to have equal opportunity to be successful.
Yeah.
In whatever that success is, and I want people to be motivated by doing the right thing in life, not rewarded for doing the wrong thing. So that's my philosophy.
Well, thanks for coming on. I wish you much success with the book, the store, continued success with the store, and everyone go pick up Essentia. It's on torpedocomics.com or at any comic book store near you, right?
Yeah, I think 560 comic book stores ordered
Awesome,
it. So
awesome.
it is out there. But it did sell out, by the way. Sold out at 9.
It did.
So I think we're looking at doing a second print of number 1.
Right.
Awesome.
Pretty exciting.
Thank you again, John.
All right, John.
All right, thanks guys.
Man.
Take care.
Bye.
Hey everyone, Baby Gabe here with a quick post-interview check-in. First, a huge thank you to John Dolmayan for being on the show. It was great to be able to hear his conversation with Mike and Uncle Dad. If you enjoyed the interview, consider giving us a 5-star review on whichever podcast app you use. It really helps us out a lot and gets us in front of a lot more people. If you're looking for more content that involves yours truly, I am working on a couple of projects. I'm currently streaming on Twitch every Friday and Sunday, where I get drunk and play Fall Guys with a couple of friends, and attempt to overcome my fear of the dark by playing some horror games. You can find me at twitch.tv/kingkiller_Azoth. It would mean so much to me if you stopped by and said hi. Thank you all for listening to this episode, and as Uncle Dad always says, love each other, respect each other, and we'll see you next time.